What's up, everyone? It's 11:22 in the morning. I just finished playing some footy earlier. Got my breakfast in. I have a coffee next to me. That's why I sound a little tired. I haven't had coffee yet. But holy shit, so much to cover. I was debating about making this both a review and a preview show, but I think I'm just gonna stick to the review of um, the Europa and the Champions League because there's so much to talk about that, and I want to keep this under 20 minutes for now. And I'll go over the big fixtures for this week's big leagues, talk about what I think is going to happen, but I won't spend too much time dissecting those. Anyway, Champions League. First of all, before I even get to Barcelona and how they came back and how they're going to win the Champions League again this year, I want to talk about Madrid. Hats off to Wolfsburg, mate. I am just so over the moon over this. I was more elated by Madrid's result than I was by Barca, which just shows how much like the passion of hatred that I have towards Madrid is a million times more than the passion of love that I have towards Barcelona. It's crazy to think. And I was watching that game in the middle of class, which was so weird because I just decided to go over to see what the result was, what was going on, and I saw Wolfsburg 2-0 up, and we had to put it on immediately. And I was like I was making all these weird facial expressions, and I'm pretty sure my prof may have seen me, but it doesn't really matter. What a result! This I actually have notes today, so I want to talk about a few things that I realized while watching that game. First off, Wolfsburg defended really well. There's no doubt about it. And Ronaldo had an off game. So I think they got slightly lucky. Because you can't always guarantee that Ronaldo is going to be off his game. Same with Bale and same with Benzema. Benzema's off injured, which is good for me and for Wolfsburg. But in order for them to go through, they need to at least score a goal. That has to be part of the plan. They have to score a goal and they have to make sure they keep Ronaldo in check. Ricardo Rodriguez, the guy from Wolfsburg, the left back who scored the penalty, is a really, really good defender. And I have no doubt he can keep Bale in check if he puts his 100% and 150%. And I think he will. Dieter Hecking, who's the manager of Wolfsburg, will make sure no player gives any less than that. But Ronaldo needs to be kept in check. Julian Draxler, who plays for Wolfsburg, had an unbelievable game. That dude is so skillful on the ball. It's like, when you see Messi and it just seems like the ball sticks to his feet, Draxler's kind of like that. He doesn't have the pace and he doesn't have a sort of the shift in gravity and that acceleration that Messi does, but Draxler was so skillful on the ball. He shields the ball really well. He knows how to keep the ball away from defenders and spray it out wide or play a good through ball in and take a shot in as well. He's good at dribbling. He had an unbelievable game. I've been keeping my eye out on him for a few years now, and I'm just super happy that he's really started living up to his potential. So it was good to see. Ricardo Rodriguez, already talked about him. He had an unbelievable game. It was great stuff. Before I move on to the Barca Atletico game, because there's so much to talk about on that one. I want to talk about PSG Man City. Now, I think Man City fans are gonna be thinking, we got 2 goals, 2 away goals, yeah, but they still need to beat PSG at home. A 1-0 is gonna do it, which is great for them, but they need to beat them. And Man City have looked so, first of all, inconsistent this season. Secondly, PSG have been so dominant. The game that they played in Paris was a little shitty for them. Yes, they got a draw out of it, but Ibrahimovic was off. He scored a goal, he missed a penalty, he missed a one-on-one chance. He was off. Cavani was off. The defending was all over the place. Now, Laurent Blanc is going to make sure that at least the defense is fine-tuned for this next game. Because No big team is going to have two shitty performances in a row, and I know that. So, in order for Man City to go through, they need to outperform PSG. It's possible. I don't think it's probable because PSG this season have looked so good. They're a better team overall than Man City this season, and unless Aguero plays more of a role than he did this past leg, I don't see City going through. De Bruyne is a great outlet for them though because he has that long shot. Like Silva is the number 10. De Bruyne can play out wide. He can take the shots. He can, play a few passes. He's an outlet. Silva isn't an outlet. He's the guy who sprays the passes. So when you have Aguero and De Bruyne, you have two outlets. And if Aguero's curbed by the defenders, De Bruyne is always there. So they have to utilize him to the max. It's very important that they get at least a goal in. PSG, I still think are going to take it, but it was a good, entertaining game. It was some horrible defending though. Fernando, I don't know what he was doing. I mean, PSG weren't any better though. Like both goals, I feel like could have been avoided. De Bruyne's finish was good, but it was just a little silly. I thought overall, Fernandinho's goal was just stupid from a defensive perspective. Benfica Bayern. Now that one. Okay, so first of all, I watched the highlights of that, and I think it was like a 12-minute highlight reel, and Bayern were dominant. They were so good, but and this is sort of a recurring trend with them lately. They haven't been able to kill off teams in the first leg. We saw that against, I think it was Shakhtar. I think I don't know. It was just one other team this this past few fixtures, and then if you also look at Juventus, they got a result away, and then they were 2-0 down at home. Like they had to come back with Bayern Benfica. Yes, Bayern could have won that like 4-5-0. You have to commend the Benfica defense. They were excellent. The keeper apparently is very inexperienced. I don't know too much about him, but he was on song that day, mate. He was just so good. Save after save, stood tall. Like he had like a Neuer-like presence about him. Speaking of Neuer, by the way, he made this one unbelievable save off of Jonas's shot. Yes, the shot could have been better placed. It was on his weaker foot, so you can't really blame him too much about that. But Neuer literally just sat down on one knee and casually flicked his left hand out, and the ball just deflected off of it. He's this Neanderthal of a man. It doesn't help that he's German, so he's already like 6'7" or some shit. Like Neuer's such an intimidating presence as a keeper, and he's really good. I haven't seen too much of him on a consistent basis to judge whether I think he's the best keeper, but there's no question that he's up there. I've seen more of De Gea, and I've seen more of Courtois and Jack Butland and all these players to think that I think for me to think that they're better players, better keepers. But Neuer, dude. If I watch more of him, I'm sure I'll be on his side as well. He's made that save look so easy. But Benfica had a couple of chances, could have scored. They did threaten, and Bayern have defensive looked vulnerable this season. They don't have they don't have Boateng. They don't have, or they did have Boateng actually. They don't have Badstuber. Oh no, actually they didn't have Boateng. They didn't have Boateng. They didn't have Badstuber. Benatia was out. They had a makeshift defense with Kimmich. Yeah, Kimmich, he's 20 years old with Martinez. Martinez has proven he's a good, solid defender. He made some really good tackles in the game. But Kimmich is the weak link because he's 20 years old, he's inexperienced. Put a little too much pressure on him, and that'll really test him. There's no guarantee that he'll fail that test, but if I was the Benfica manager, I would be focused on him. The only problem, though, is that Jonas, who's their top scorer, I think he's got over 30 goals this season. He has picked up a yellow this past the past leg, so he's gonna miss the home game for them with a suspension, which is unfortunate. So they need a better outlet, but Benfica have hope, but it's the hope that kills you. And Bayern are masters at destroying people's hopes. So I still think they're gonna go through, but my heart is with Benfica. I want a little bit. I want to like the underdog. to take it and destroy the German giants. You know, one quick word before I want to move on is Renato Sanchez, who is this central defense midfielder for Benfica. He's like 19 years old. This is his breakout season. That kid is a star, man. He has got so much composure. He's strong. He's skillful as well. I saw him at one small little reel during the game was him literally juggling and flicking the ball over someone else and then controlling it. And it reminds me of like the swagger that Pogba has. Pogba's taller, so he's more noticeable. But Sanchez is like slightly shorter and stocky. And he's like 19 or 18, and he already scored like a thunderbolt of a goal earlier in the Champions League from like 50, no, from like 40 yards out. So I mean, that isn't enough to prove, but I think he's a star. He's got massive potential. Benfica are really good at churning out these young players anyway. So I'd keep my eye out on him if I were one of you guys. Now, finally, Atletico Barcelona. Holy shit, there's so much to talk about. First of all, the second half when Barcelona came out and they scored the goal right up, I was shocked that they didn't start the first half like that. They looked slow. I think they were like a little intimidated, or they were a little cautious. I don't want to say intimidated. They were a little cautious to see how Atletico would shape up. Atletico shaped up like they would normally do. They play that role of the underdog, of the defensive union, the defensive steely side that is just gonna grind the result out. There's no plan B for them, you know. Especially if they're playing a team that's quote unquote bigger than them. Atletico have only one plan. I don't understand why Barcelona didn't start the way they did in the first half. Secondly, it was crazy to see how they upped the tempo second half, which was just a little mind blowing for me a little bit that they didn't start like in the first half. But now I have a few thoughts on the way Atletico play. So one thing I really admire about their football is like the whole tiki taka thing that is synonymous with that Barcelona and Bayern. Atletico are so good at doing the one-touch passes out of sticky situations, and you saw that a bunch of times in the game. They'd they'd be able to ride the Barcelona press right in their own half, and then play a few one-touch passes, and then have an outlet in the form of Torres or Griezmann running, so that it should work well for their counter from a counter-attacking point of view. But what I fucking despise about them is how dirty the players are. You had, like, I think I counted it the other, there were 9 players, and that's 9 players on a yellow, and that includes Torres being booked twice. So 8 players on a yellow, and 9 yellow cards overall, and a red card. That's out of 11 fucking players. That's one thing. Secondly, fucking Simeone putting his hands up to the heaven, oh, there's so much injustice done. No, there's no fucking injustice done. Torres was an idiot to go in for those challenges. He could have been booked even before he got the second one for a challenge on Iniesta that the referee let slide. So I don't know why anyone can possibly side with Atletico being like, oh yeah, the referees prefer side with Barcelona. No, shut the fuck up. You got to look at the facts objectively, and you got to see that Atletico are a dirty team, and yes, they're like terriers a little bit. You know, they're gonna hustle hard. They're gonna grind a result out. They're steely. They're hard to break down, and that's all very admirable qualities of them. But football as a sport is not meant to be overly aggressive and physical in the way that Atletico play. We used to see it with Stoke of early days, Stoke City, but that's Stoke City. They have no other option. They don't have a player like Griezmann. They don't have Koke. They've got good fucking players. I don't get why Atletico play in such a dirty way. And it's synonymous of Simeone's style because that's the kind of passion he has for the game. That's the kind of player he was. But I haven't seen too much about him, but this is what seems to be the case. But my big question is, if a team like this, which is financially lesser off than the two big teams in the league, if they decide to change it up a little bit, yes, they've got results after changing their style like this, but you can't keep playing like this and then expect things to go your way. It's a very high risk strategy, being overly aggressive, and especially with a team like Barcelona, where you've got a lot of players who are easy targets, like Neymar, just get kicked around in every game. So Messi is better at evading tackles, which is why he doesn't get kicked around as much. But Neymar is always kicked around. Busquets is given a lot of shit, and some of it I think is warranted, but he got annihilated that game by some of the players, and I just don't get it. There's two or three things I want to pick out specifically. One is Lucas Hernandez, the youngster. He's 19. He's partnering Diego Godin in defense. He had a decent game. I read a bunch of stuff, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, he had a really good game. He lived up to this thing." No, he had a decent game. He was solid for a defender. He played his role well, but I think he should have been sent off. He was extremely aggressive on one couple of challenges on Neymar, and he picked up a yellow for that. But that could have easily been a red. If Torres hadn't been sent off, I feel like the referee would have sent this guy off. And then another one, Augusto Fernandez, who came off the bench, two-footed fucking challenge on Danny Alves. That is just uncalled for. Doesn't matter what identity your team is. We like to play the hard game. We're the underdogs. No, doesn't matter. You can identify as one thing or the other, but you play dangerously like that, you shouldn't be on the fucking football field. And he picked up a yellow for that. And I'm sure if he had been sent off, there would have been more stick in the mainstream media about how the referee side with the big teams, the referee side with the Barcelona Athletic. No, that's all nonsense. It's very easy to say that, but if you look into the game for what it is, try and take your bias out of it. Obviously, I'm heavily biased towards Barcelona. I'm happy that we came out with a result, but you have to look at things objectively, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. And I know I'm doing it correctly because two-footed challenges. It doesn't. If a Barcelona player made a two-footed challenge, I would want him off the field too, because you don't want dangerous play. You want players to be able to play their football, have a good career, have a good life. You don't want to fucking injure them. That's just a little silly. I really wanted to talk about it. Speaking of which, Suarez was playing a dangerous game too. He lashed out at Juanfran. The only thing is he didn't hit. He didn't actually make contact. So I don't think it would have been a red. He was a little impulsive a couple of other times too. He needs to get that in check, like mad, because he can't be this volatile as a player. That's just, especially after the past that he's had. One last thing before I wanted to move on to the next week's results is next week's fixtures. Is one thing I loved about that game was to see Rafinha back. It was he was out earlier after playing Roma. One of the games he got injured. He ruptured his cruciate ligament. It was off a challenge of Nainggolan. He was out for so long. Great to see him back. He looks good. He's a great player. I've always loved him. And I'm glad to see him back, and I'm sure he'll start getting more game time. Now, finally, before I conclude, I know I'm almost out of time, but I want to talk about the one big game, or the two big games really, in the Premier League. One is Tottenham, Man United, and the other one is Leicester, Sunderland. They're both tough to call. I think Tottenham will take it just because they need a result, and the players that they have are so passionate, and they're gonna hustle hard, and they have an identity to their football, which United don't. But at the same time, just on the flip side of that, United are so unpredictable. Like one game they'll play really well, the other game they'll play really shitty, and then the third game they'll come out off the rocks with crazy amount of drive. So I don't know what United to expect. They need a result too, but they've needed results in the past and they haven't really done shit. So I'm gonna go for Tottenham winning that game, but my heart wants United. Obviously, that's an interesting one to keep out. Leicester will play a tough task. Again, I think they'll take it, but I think they'll sneak it a 1-0 or a 2-1 because of the fact that Sunderland need a result and Leicester love playing less possession, more counter-attacking. So it's all going to play into their hands. It's going to be tough, like every other game it has been. But I think they're going to take it. There's no question about that. Oh, there are questions about that, but my vote is for Leicester. And honestly, if they win this, I've said this last week, but they've got it. There's no question about it. If they win this fucking game, they're done. The Premier League is done. Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna get back to my coffee. I will be back on Monday with another one with a recap of the results from all around Europe. This has been a lot of fun. Cheers.